When President Volodymyr Zelensky first spoke about Ukraine's future, he framed NATO membership as a destination, not just a policy, but a guarantee of survival and sovereignty for a nation under threat. And for years, that ambition symbolized Ukraine's desire to anchor itself firmly in the Western world and escape the shadow of Russian influence. Now, something appears to be shifting, as recent signals from Zelensky suggest a willingness to reconsider that long-standing goal and to explore compromise. In a moment defined by exhaustion, pressure, and hard realities on the battlefield and at the negotiating table. To understand why this matters, it is important to remember what NATO represents for Ukraine. Because NATO is not just a military alliance, it is a promise that an attack on one member is an attack on all. And for Ukraine, facing a powerful neighbor, that promise has always been deeply appealing. However, NATO membership has also been one of the central red lines for Russia. And from the very beginning of the conflict, Moscow framed the idea of Ukraine joining NATO as an existential threat. Whether that claim is accepted or rejected, it has shaped the entire war narrative and the diplomatic deadlock surrounding it. Zelensky's current tone does not necessarily mean surrender or weakness, but it reflects a leader confronting the limits of idealism in a prolonged war. Ukraine has shown resilience beyond expectations, but the human cost, economic strain, and uncertainty of long-term military support from allies have forced difficult conversations behind closed doors. By signaling openness to compromise, Zelensky may be attempting to unlock stalled diplomatic pathways, especially as some Western partners grow more cautious about escalation and more focused on stability rather than total victory. And in that context, NATO membership becomes not just a goal, but a bargaining chip. This stance also speaks to the reality that NATO itself is divided. While many member states support Ukraine politically and militarily, full membership during an active conflict remains highly unlikely. And that gap between promise and possibility creates frustration and strategic ambiguity. Zelensky's remarks can therefore be read as an effort to align public expectations with geopolitical reality and to show flexibility without abandoning Ukraine's core demand for security. Because stepping back from NATO does not mean stepping back from safety, it simply means searching for alternative guarantees. Those alternatives could include international security assurances, long-term military aid agreements, or a neutral status backed by enforceable commitments. But history shows that paper guarantees alone have failed Ukraine before, making trust a major challenge. Domestically, this potential shift carries risks. Ukrainian society has endured immense sacrifice under the belief that the country is moving decisively toward a Western future, and any perception of retreat could provoke anger, disappointment, or political tension. Internationally, the message is equally complex. Russia may interpret compromise as opportunity, while allies may see it as pragmatism, and somewhere in between lies the delicate balance Zelensky must maintain between resistance and realism. What is clear is that this moment reflects a broader truth about modern warfare and diplomacy. Wars do not end only on the battlefield. They end through negotiations shaped by fatigue, leverage, and changing priorities. Zelensky's consideration of abandoning NATO membership is not a single decision, but a signal that Ukraine is exploring every possible path to survival, dignity, and long-term stability. And whether that path leads to peace or deeper uncertainty will depend on how the world responds to this opening. In the end, this is not just a story about NATO. It is about a nation trying to redefine security in an imperfect world where ideals collide with power and leadership means choosing between painful options rather than perfect ones.